Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Friday Debate podcast by Android Authority, discussing topics in Android every week. I am, of course, your host for the FDP, Joshua Vergara from Android Authority. What's going on, everybody? And this week we have a pretty light topic for the FDP. I'm joined by Jonathan Feist, our YouTuber Joe Hindy, and one of our lead editors, Andrew Grush, the usual architect for the Friday Debate, and he picked a very light topic for us, thank goodness, because we are all still on the road to recovery from MWC 2015. Today we talk about our tech origin stories, going way back in time to sort of reminisce about how we got started in tech, and also pontificating about how all of that tech life has shaped who we are today as writers and YouTubers, for example, of Android Authority. But before we get to that, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping still. If you are listening to this particular podcast on Pocket Cast, Stitcher, and iTunes, thank you so much for listening. And if you are watching the YouTube version of this podcast, please remember that you can go to any one of those networks in order to listen to the FDP, and those are definitely the best way of listening to the Android Authority podcast. After that, you can find all of us on social media. Every single one of us is available on Google+, but you can also find us on Twitter. And if you want to find those links in order to follow us on various social media networks, you can head over to the Friday Debate podcast post at androidauthority.com in order to follow us. But from there, without any further ado, we're going to jump into this episode number 8 of the Android Authority Friday Debate podcast, our tech origin stories. Hope you guys enjoy. God, the recovery from MWC has been slow and not very steady. I mean, Barcelona treated us very well, but I wanted to check in with everybody. Like, what's everyone been up to since I've been, out eating Spanish food?
What a horrible thing.
Well, the thing is,
delicious, ridiculously awesome European food. What have you guys been doing?
Well, it was funny because on the last night, it was up to me to freaking put together the final get together. We got together with a bunch of people like Pocket Now, Erica Griffin, Mobile Geeks, and it was kind of up to me to find the place. But Lon and Darcy, God bless them, just kept telling me we're sick of tapas, and I said,
That's about all there is.
Exactly. You realize we're in Spain, in Barcelona. Tapas is all they have here.
I say that's pretty much it.
Yeah, you could go to a steakhouse and they'll give it to you on a small plate. I mean, come on. Oh, that's man,
funny.
But
that is funny.
So how's everybody been? It's been a couple weeks since we've been on the cast. I've had a couple of late releases. I hope everyone's been okay with that. But how have my regular co-hosts been since this MWC season has finally died down a bit?
Not bad. Actually, I feel so bad. Like, of everybody who was at, who did MWC 2015 stuff, I did the least. I did almost nothing. I did the the HTC.
You did the live vlogs. That's something.
I did. That's it. That's all I did for MWC 2015.
That may be more than what I did, to be honest. I only got a couple posts out as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't do squat, man. I felt so bad. Everyone's like, I'm so busy working 16-hour days. I'm like, I spent the whole day watching anime and hanging out with my girlfriend. I felt so bad.
I'm glad you didn't message us that was all happening with you.
Yeah, I would have probably shot you in the face.
I kept quiet, I think. I was just like, I'm just going to let them go and just kind of hang out back here in the background. I did do a whole bunch of app list videos, though. I think I did 10 of them in the last 14
notice
days.
That. Kudos to you, man. It's a lot of hard work.
I wanted to get them all out before all the MWC stuff, so that way, it wasn't like MWC video, app list? Why?
That would have been fine. It'd be a nice change of pace. You're just hearing me and Lon all damn day,
Man, Lon hit the 1 million mark. I'm proud of the guy. That's good for him.
Super shout out to Lon. We had such a great time. This is probably the happiest I personally have ever been at a trade show because I finally was able to split the work with somebody.
I was the happiest I've ever been, and I wasn't there just because things got out so super quick. It was so smooth. From the administrator's point of view, it was great. I loved it. I was busy. My busiest days were Sunday, obviously, and I think Tuesday which might seem like an odd day for me to have been at my busiest, but I think that's when a lot of the videos were coming in, maybe.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I think Tuesday I worked like 16 hours.
Yeah, no, those were the days. I mean, that was...
Yeah, and then Sunday was crazy. I think Sunday was like 16,
It was
17
Sunday,
hours.
yeah. That's exactly what I was about to say. Day 0 was just a crazy fest, and just... It was...
Well, of course, you had so many videos that day you were doing, and...
Oh, again, I gotta say, being able to split the work with somebody, thank the freaking Lord. And
yeah, I can't imagine how you did it before.
especially with like Samsung bringing out the Edge and all that. And I remember at the beginning of that little like brief that we had so we can get the footage early, I just looked at Lon and I'm like, dude, which one do you want?
Nice.
And he was like, I guess I'll take the Edge. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that day 0 was nuts because it wasn't just all the pre-briefings. I mean, Grushy, you've been there with us in the trenches. Like, you know how it is when certain events are going on, like the PepCom and Showstoppers. The thing is, they were all scheduled for that one Sunday.
Yeah, it was. I looked at our schedule; it was pretty booked.
Yeah, exactly. And then, like, even that PepCom that was at the end of the day when we went over there, everyone else that we knew, all of our tech friends, were out at Samsung's event still, and kind of like 3/4 of them didn't even show up to PepCom. I texted Michael Fisher and I was just like, dude, like, where are you at, man? We got to have like a glass of wine or something because it's been a hard day. He's like, oh, we totally forgot about PepCom. I was like, oh man, that's just how hard that day was. But
Saturday was pretty busy from our point of view, just because we were doing all the pre stuff,
the preps.
Yeah, all the prep stuff in the background. I mean, there was so much stuff to do there, but it wasn't as long. I think I worked maybe 10 to 12 hours, which isn't that big of a deal.
Yeah,
I knew Sunday was going to be so bad for you guys when Grushy messaged me. He's like, "Did anyone talk to you?" And I thought I was getting fired for every time someone says like, "Have you been talked to yet?" That's the first time I go, "Oh my god, I'm being fired." But he was like, "No, yeah, you want to do the HTC and Samsung live blogs, right?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." He goes, "All right, yeah, one's at 10 and the other one's at like noon." And I was like, okay, yeah, which days? They're both on Sunday. What?
Yep.
Yeah.
They're announcing everything on the same day?
Yep.
Damn.
Trust us, when we woke up that morning and we looked at the schedule, because, okay, Darcy, thank God for Darcy because he's able to put together all this stuff that allows us to get the content, and then, it's just this nice, well-oiled machine. But the one thing Darcy didn't do during this particular show that he does every show was Google Cal me a week before.
I didn't get it until, I mean, I got it probably before you then. When did you get it?
I got it the morning of Sunday.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I got it a little before you. I think he sent it on Friday night?
Yeah.
Saturday night?
I mean,
if I would have known that, I would have sent, but I assumed you'd be the first person he gave a copy to.
Oh my goodness. Like we had
if I would have known that, I would have sent you a copy. But it wasn't, his copy wasn't very good initially. I mean, it was missing some things.
Oh, sure.
But I mean, and the times were wrong on half of it because he got confused, I think.
Well, like we had the
time zone.
We had a call like a few days prior, and he told me that everything's kind of falling at the same time. So like we were kind of prepared for it, but when I looked at it on that Sunday morning after like having my bulletproof coffee, I was like, son of a bitch.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm sure you guys didn't. I'm sure you didn't sleep at all that day, right?
I'm trying to remember.
We're coming up in
the bad it was. Haven't heard much from Feisty over there, man. Like what? Like you said that you did even less than Joe. So this is your mid-season evaluation. What?
Yeah, no kidding.
To be fair, because of his time zone, and because of the fact that Jimmy and I are both on the Central time zone, everything was pretty much done by the time the poor guy was around. You know,
that's fair.
And so
what? How did you pass the time during MWC season? What were you up to this past couple weeks?
I've been spending the majority of my time
tab times.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Our new sister site, all about tablets,
now.
and completely immersing myself in it. We got the new writers going on there, and it's been, I want to say exciting, but we're moving forward, going strong. So.
Yeah, definitely. Everybody check out Tab Times also. As my Note 4 starts ringing, who is calling me? Number I don't know. Hang up. Okay, so
yeah, just like Grushy was saying, I mean, kudos to him and Jimmy. Let's be honest. Every time I popped in and like, hey, what's there for me to cover? How can I help? Grushy was like, you know what? We got this. You're fine. And then 3:00 in the morning comes along. I'm ready to close it down, and he's like, ooh, could you do just one more for me? Or Bogdan's getting on, and he's like, hey, would you mind just one before you go? So.
See, Bogdan at a show has this really interesting way of being because he gets on and he starts talking to all of you guys, and then he doesn't necessarily get like stressed out, but it seems like it. But because the way that Bogdan reacts to like his eyes getting tired and stuff like that is he puts his like head in his hands and he starts breathing really hard.
I've heard that.
Like, it really throws us for a loop because like me and Lon were like, "You okay, dude?" And then Bogdan's like, "No, I'm okay. It's okay, guys. It's okay."
You know, in his head,
So
he was
funny.
going, "Damn Americans, Jesus."
I know. I know, right? Oh man. I have to mention like this might be the first show that I'm actually super excited about what's to come. Like, did you guys see my video on the HTC Vive?
I did not. I missed most of the MWC videos.
Oh, no problem. Like,
I watched every single one.
we don't have to go through it at length, but this is a VR platform that I can actually believe in. And having Valve at the helm, I mean, HTC helps with the hardware and, of course, some of the software, but Valve is creating these experiences that you're going to have, completely immersive experience. Like, I'm not going to get into it too much, but let's just say once you put that VR headset on, the headphones, and then they put the controllers in your hands, the room you were standing in before you put all that crap on, it disappears. And you are all of a sudden in this crazy world. The controllers are like your hands in the world. You're picking everything up. And, you know, we're mostly gamers up in here, and we're going to get to that in a little bit. But the final part of the demo, the final world that they showed us was Aperture. And you had to repair a portal robot. It was freaking amazing. And of course you're set up to fail because GLaDOS is like, but when the walls come down and GLaDOS like zooms in on you and basically tells you she's gonna kill you, you piss your pants. Like that's how immersive that thing is. But super exciting to see at MWC that I finally got excited about something again. You know, like I love smartphones, I love what we do for a living, but it's good to finally walk out of a room that you get some sort of demo of something before everybody else in the world, and you're super excited for them to try it, you know? It's so good. But on that note, as we look toward the future from MWC, we're looking back at our past. Like that segue? Hey.
Nice.
Today we're talking origin stories, and we just had a little check in there, so I hope you guys are enjoying our FDP. We're back in the studio and back to our, not really studio, but studios, and back to our regularly scheduled program. And this week, thank God for Grushy, picked a pretty light one for us. We're talking about our tech origin stories. What got us into tech, and what got us essentially to where we are now? Let's see here. All right, so I kind of wanted to just open up the panel. You can go as far back as you want. When you were a kid, that's what I'm going to do a little bit later. Back when you were a kid, what were the first pieces of technology that you really loved? And kind of, you know, what made you fall in love with this world of technology that we all now, in one way or another, report on and make a living off of? I'm going to open it up. Even if there's a little bit of silence, you guys can figure out who's going to start. So, yeah, let's open it up. Who wants to start off with their origin story in tech?
I've actually been thinking about this all day because I haven't had anything else to do today. I have like the show to do tomorrow, so I haven't really been thinking.
You know, MWC's done already.
I know.
Right,
I know. It sounds like I'm so lazy, but like I do other things that just, you know. Anyways, I actually didn't start out as a tech nerd. I started out as a regular nerd, like Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons, and like wearing shirts with like Pokemon on them, which I'm actually still doing right now as we speak. But I actually I didn't own my first computer, or like, you know, like all my game systems I share with my brother throughout my childhood. So like I didn't have any electronics that were my own until I was like 20 years old. That was like 8 years ago. And yeah, it felt weird like getting into technology because, like, you know, I was with all the family computers and stuff like that. I was always the person that had to fix all of that stuff, but I was never really all that into it. So, you know, I got a computer, and then a few years later I got my first Android device, and I don't know. I just kind of like
okay, Joe. We need details up in here. All right, what computer was this? What phones are we talking about?
I'm getting there.
What are some of these electronics that you shared with your bros?
I
man?
figured we were gonna get into the details later. My bad. That's my bad. Let's see. Oh, the consoles. That's a long list. See, my brother and I had an Xbox, a PlayStation 2, a PlayStation, Super Nintendo. We had, I swear to God, one of those Nintendo VR things. You know, remember those?
The Virtual Boy?
Yeah, the Virtual Boy. We had a Virtual Boy. And what?
I said, yeah, that was an interesting system.
That was a thing.
That system was god awful.
It's behind me I have a little cabinet behind me. It's in there.
That thing was responsible for every headache I had between the ages of 9 and 10. It was so bad, but it was so...
It gives really bad headaches.
It was so fun to play, but it was so painful. It's like drinking too much alcohol. It's like the night before, you're like, yeah, I'm going to get wasted. The next morning, you're like, oh, why did I get so wasted? And like, the Virtual Boy is exactly the same way. You're like, man, I'm going to play some Virtual Boy. And then afterwards, you're like, oh, man, why did I play that Virtual Boy? It was so bad. Yeah, pretty much every major game console that came out between like 1990 and 2004, where my brother and I split one. My first computer was crap. I can't remember. It was an HP POS, like dual core, blah blah blah. Like
that was an official name of the computers back then.
Yep.
POS.
HP POS with Intel something or other, clocked at something or other.
Oh yeah, I had that one too. Yeah, that was a good machine.
Yeah, right. Wasn't that such a great laptop? It was like,
I say, are you sure it was a dual core back then?
It was 8 years ago. It was.
How long ago were you talking? Oh, it was only 8 years ago. Okay, I guess.
Yeah, 2007.
Okay.
That was by what was the buzzword? Core 2 Duo, wasn't that what the?
Something
I
like
guess
that.
I guess I'm thinking when you talk about old computers, I'm thinking old.
Yeah, no, that's the
computers.
thing. Like we had like a family computer, but like when I was a kid.
But you don't remember what it was?
No, it was a compact white brick with like one button on the front and
a compact Presario.
It wasn't a Presario. It was like the off.
It wasn't. That's about all they made.
It was the off Presario brand that was like $200 even back then. But yeah, it was like my dad was married back then. There's 5 kids in the house, so like we had to like schedule time on that thing. We all had to do schoolwork and stuff like that. So I didn't get to like play games on computers or anything like that. My mom had a Gateway, and I played Diablo 2 on that for a long time.
Nice.
But it was like, I was only up there every other weekend and during the summer, so it's like most of the year I wasn't there playing it. But yeah, no, with my first computer, I started tinkering around with some stuff. I got a lot of really crappy technology. And believe it or not, that's what like really sparked my interest. Like I got a hard drive that was a JBOD enclosure. You guys remember when that was a thing?
No, what?
Yeah, it was so crappy. Most people don't even know what it is. It was 2 hard drives in a single enclosure. Right, so it was like a 1 terabyte and 1 terabyte in a single enclosure, and it was like this. It was called JBOD. I can't remember exactly what it was or what it did, but it was just essentially a RAID 0 in an external hard drive.
Yeah, it's like a RAID.
Sounds like a lotion.
That's kind of.
Store your data and rejuvenate your skin with JBOD. Sorry.
Exfoliate.
Exfoliate. But yeah, so like I kept buying this really crappy old technology, and it kept breaking, and it was really terrible. And then I got my first Android phone. Speaking of crappy and terrible technology, it was a Motorola Click.
Click! Oh my goodness!
Yeah, that was my first Android phone, and I ended up having to get 3 different ones because the radio kept dying. And it wasn't like I was a newbie and stupid and didn't understand what was going on. I mean, like the little thingy at the top would go away entirely. And I could not make any phone calls, text messages, or get data at all. It was just totally dead. And the cool thing was, every time I sent one back, they sent it back to me with the SD card and everything. So I still have most of them, like 3 or 4 2 gigabyte micro SD cards just sitting over here that I never use.
Oh man, talk about POSs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those can't even hold like 4 apps these days. Like,
oh my! And that was back when like Moto Blur was like really bad, like really, really bad.
Didn't they have a refresh of Moto Blur at one point back then that was like really well received though? Like it was one of the first ones to have the heads up notifications. Am I remembering something wrong?
That was the Verizon. The first couple of generations of the Droid Razr series still had Moto Blur, and it was actually somewhat decent Moto Blur. I remember actually, I had a Droid something or other. It was
from Verizon.
I bought it off of eBay because I was doing something on the XDA forums, because that's where I kind of got the really hardcore into Android, was there. I started rooting my devices and all that stuff. But I bought one just because they said it was like really difficult to root, and that was my thing back then. I was like, oh, it's so hard to root, I'm gonna root the crap out of it.
It wasn't the Incredible, was it?
No, it wasn't it was after the Incredible. I'm sorry, it was
okay.
It wasn't the Resound. That was HTC anyway. Holy crap! I can't believe I'm blanking on this so bad.
Oh, you said Droid. That's why I was saying Droid.
It was. Oh my goodness! It was before the quad cores came out. I remember that. I'm gonna go look that up real quick. Somebody else talk for a second.
All right. Well, yeah, we got into the Android world with Joe already. Why don't we pop it over to Feisty? Like, what? We don't hear a whole lot about like our past a whole lot. I'm really interested to hear how Feisty got started in tech right now.
Tech? What's that? Hold on.
He's Amish.
It's supposed to be technology? What?
He's talking into a can right now and a wire that's connected all.
I'm straight up Amish, bro.
Yeah. The way I've been shaving lately, it'd be hard to prove otherwise, but or the way I haven't been shaving.
Sorry, bud.
Oh,
it was
Bionic.
a Droid Bionic. Sorry, go ahead, bud. I just wanted to get that out. Sorry.
No problem. For me, technology got started really young from more of a mechanical perspective. My dad had these RC. Don't tell my dad. This isn't going public, is it? Yeah. He had a remote control car. It was, a Le Mans type race car.
Oh, nice.
I took a screwdriver to that thing. I ripped it open. Broke it right down to almost nothing. Built it back up. I don't think he ever knew. And that was early on. I mean, I barely remember doing this, and. I mean, I always was ripping things apart, stereos, TVs, VCRs, all that kind of stuff. I just, it was tearing them apart, and then that was fun for me. I had one of those, 201 electronics kits that's got all the, the diodes, capacitors, all that kind of stuff on it. All you do is connect the little wires and then push the button, and it makes a noise. And then you rearrange the wires and you push the button and it makes another noise. I got bored with that stuff pretty quick, but hey, it was there, it was fun. It was educational, right? One of the big things for us in our family, there's 5 kids in our family, so we shared most everything. But we had this one little, I want to call it a computer now, but this was like before the days of, before anybody, Intel was a household brand. We're talking well beyond that. It was just a little voice prompt, children's toy, basically. You choose these modes and, guess the number, and it would put to, a simple 1 + 1 kind of mathematical equation. And, you just learn from it. But, we all ran through that thing. It was kind of a neat start. But, I mean, again, that was youngster stuff. And then you grow up, right? High school comes along, bigger stereos.
Puberty.
A major driver for me, especially through my teenage years into my early 20s, was music. My friends were always big on video games, and I'd go over to their place and watch for the entertainment value or play whatever it happened to be. NHL 94, come on, all the time. We had tournaments, but for me, it was music was really the big motivator for me for technology. And then through high school, I kick myself now, but I made fun of the computer nerds. I was playing sports, I was on the basketball team, that sort of stuff.
Oh, you were a jock.
I wasn't really, but yeah, I was. And so, I got, halfway through high school, and I realized, hey, wait a minute, there's something to these computers. And I finally purchased my first one after high school. Kind of like Joe was saying, just it was a custom build at the time. My friend's dad was, just starting up his own shop, and it was the first generation Pentium processor with an 8 gigabyte hard drive. That was, I tell you, I could almost load web pages.
Are you sure it was a Pentium 1 with a 8 gigabyte hard drive? That sounds not right.
Probably a Pentium 2, probably. I remember.
Yeah, that had to be more like a Pentium 2 or 3. That can't be a.
God, I'm getting
1.
like the weirdest flashbacks right now.
Sorry, I'm a super nerd. So
Well, I never really looked back on that thing. It burnt out in about a year, and I tossed it. So,
what year was it?
That would have been 99.
So yeah, that'd be like a pen. Yeah, it'd be like Pentium 2 or 3.
I barely even remember 99. Good lord.
Well, I'm just getting started on 99. Come on.
The only thing I remember from 1999 was like WWE or WWF back then, and that was like Chris Jericho was really huge back then because of the Y2J thing.
Oh man, don't get me started on wrestling right now.
Break the walls down, dude! I watched his debut the other day.
Oh, his first one, his very first one.
Yeah, and how the crowd was chanting
when he interrupted The Rock.
Yeah, and then the crowd just started chanting Rocky and ignored him for 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay,
oh, man.
Let me possibly make you guys jealous. You remember Bret the Hitman Hart and Owen Hart, those guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're from Calgary. I didn't grow up with those boys, but just after high school, the first job I got, they were regulars, and we'd go out down to the gym and wrestle with them and stuff. Yeah.
Oh
no,
man, that's freaking
awesome.
badass.
You just reminded me of this. I'm not into wrestling, but while I was working years ago as a manager for a McDonald's, as a store manager for a little while. Anyway, during college, and we in our little small town McDonald's on the interstate, we had John Cena come in. So I've met him before.
Grushy follows up Bret the Hitman Hart with like John Cena. Like,
well, I just you reminded me of wrestling, so I got thinking about that. That's all.
He's like, so it's like fashionable right now to call John Cena lame. That's why it's funny. Oh man, that's so funny.
Yeah, it just kind of popped into my head. That's all.
That's really cool, though.
I'm not into wrestling at all. But
in real life, John Cena is actually like a really dope dude. That's what I keep hearing. But anyway, Feisty was talking about Pentium 2s and 8GB hard drives. Like, so what was the evolution into mobile then? If you started off with like desktop computers, you said music. Actually, you know what? Let's go back to the music thing. How did music actually formulate your tech life? If like back in high school and whatnot. You were saying?
Well, basically stereos. I was into all things. Now at this part, keep in mind mechanical. Throughout high school, I was one of the top dogs in at the high school's mechanics class, and I was going to national competitions and stuff for turning wrenches. Not the most, not the proudest time of my life, but that's what I was into. I was a gearhead at the time, and that was cool. So, I was always playing with putting in car stereos and bigger speakers. And then in the house, it was always, what stereo should I get? What speakers? What sub should I get? How can I keep this quiet? How can I build my own speakers? Not speaker themselves, but, speaker enclosures and what kind of wiring, that kind of stuff. So it was all very hands-on, mechanical, electrical and stuff. And, to be honest, it was that kind of nitty-gritty work that moved me forward with it all. Mostly because I got sick of it, and I just wanted something that worked. Which is the story of my life when it comes to cars and houses and computers. The whole thing is just, spending so much time with hand-me-downs and POSs, and you just finally want something that works. And so, it took almost 10 years, but I finally went back to college for computer sciences, and I was in college where everything kind of turned around and certainly went mobile, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I mean
that's an interesting angle. I just realized. Like, so you went back to school. You went to school rather for computer science. So were you just looking to continue that gearhead mentality, to just sort of find the inner workings and tinker with what was eventually going to become ubiquitous in our lives? Yes, essentially.
I mean, I'd worked a string of jobs into the office jobs at this point. No more turning wrenches. It's still at dealerships, mind you, so I'm still in the automotive world, but yeah, pushing paper nonetheless, and using computers on a day-to-day basis. That was a big thing, was using the computers, and it just came easy for me, as I'm sure it comes to most people, especially these days. But you're always, when you become good or you help one person with one issue on a computer, all of a sudden, as you guys know, you become a guru and you're helping everybody. And that's kind of why I went to school was, I'm already helping everybody. Let's go step it up. Let's learn my skills, network technician, learn some server side stuff. That's what I started in. And then very, very quickly jumped over to the programming world. And I still don't know how to properly configure my home router. I should have stuck with that a little bit longer. Yeah.
Oh, man. Any like high-tech person will be stifled when you put a printer in front of them and be like, why doesn't this work?
Yeah, exactly.
Printers are the bane of existence.
That reminds me of a story that I have to share real quick, if that's okay.
Go for it.
So, okay, this was probably, I don't know, maybe 97, 98. We had a printer that wasn't working, right? On our computer. It wasn't responding. And so we had my uncle who was like, he was a computer programmer and, super smart guy. And he came over and he did all these massive troubleshooting things and couldn't figure anything out. I think it might have been Christmas or something because we had him over and we had my best friend's dad over too, he was into technology, but not so like hardcore like programmer type. Anyway, so my uncle couldn't figure it out for the world of him. He ran all these commands, did all these diagnoses, and then Mr. Dowdy was his name. He came down, he looked at the computer, he moved to the back, he plugged it in, and all was fine. The cord had come undone. So the techie one wanted to do all these hardcore like analysis and running scripts and figuring all these really complicated things, but all he did was make sure that the cord was in right. It was fixed. Sorry, when you said printers, that reminded me of that, and I'll never forget that.
I even have a story about that too. Like I remember the first, because I did tech support when I was in college, and I was like, okay, so this used to be a big deal back then, but obviously, we're older now, and it doesn't really matter. But I was at the time the only freshman in the school's history to ever be hired as a tech support specialist because, quote unquote, I was that good. And the first on-call assignment that I had was at this. I went to the University of San Diego, so people always joke about it. It's a lot of privileged people there, especially the females there. Like the University of Spoiled Daughters is what it used to be called. And I went to this one girl's dorm, and she was freaking out because her printer wasn't working, and there was a paper that was already due in like the first few weeks of school, and she was freaking the heck out, and I was trying to figure out what was wrong with this printer. It wasn't really connecting. It was registered on the computer. I'm trying to remember what's going on. And sure enough, she had just not plugged the damn thing into her computer. And it was like, I thought these were wireless. I'm like, well, if it doesn't work wirelessly, plug the damn thing in. And I remember it gave me an idea. I always wish that I did this, and I wish I could go back in time and do it one day. If a problem like that was that dumb, if the solution was that stupid, I always wanted to have like a pocket of glitter, and when I plug it in, I have a pocket of glitter, and when someone calls me for that kind of problem and I plug it in and it works, and they're all, and before I give them like the final, oh look, it's working, they're like, oh, did you figure it out? Is it going to be okay? I'm like, yeah, let me just do one thing real quick, and then I just grab the glitter on the printer or on the computer, and then hit the button and it works. Like I would never explain to them how it worked.
I like it. Yeah, you should have done that.
That's fantastic.
That's awesome.
Like they called the tech support center. Like, I don't know what he did, but he threw some glitter on it and it's working. Oh my god. All right, but before we move off the rails, what we went to school for, if it had to do with tech, that's an interesting angle because I went to school for communication studies, which technically is what I'm doing now, being in the new media, obviously. But I was curious, Joe, what was your major in university in college?
Video game development, actually.
Oh, see, yeah, it's crazy how it permeates throughout.
Yeah,
it
was. I'm trying to think of the way to phrase this. I'm having a brain fart. Sorry, guys. It's midnight where I am right now. But it helped a lot when I started doing blogging because even just a couple of years in, like I've never built anything substantial in terms of video games. I haven't even played with playing or doing a video game in a while. But like when you get the first couple of years into developing video games, you start losing a lot of respect for like 60% of the games that are in the Google Play Store right now. Like everyone's like, check out this brand new, it's revolutionary little minimal puzzle game with like 2 shapes. And I'm like, dude, I can do that. Try again. I'm not reviewing this. Go away.
So did you hate like Super Hexagon?
No, Super Hexagon was fun and really, really hard. But it was, looking at it, it's just a bunch of, shapes that spin in various patterns. And, it's not difficult to make, but it's difficult to play. And that's why I like that one. But, like, I looked at, like, I was never into, like, the 2048 game. I thought that game was stupid because it's like, somebody made $1 million off of something that they could have learned in 6 months. Like, it's just, So it turned me into a snob a little bit. But the thing that sucked was that all of the stuff that I was learning was in like C++, and the game studio I was using was Unreal at the time.
Oh, nice.
And it's just like I'm a bit huge into Android now, and I can't use my C++ knowledge for squat. It's totally useless now. It's like, man, why didn't I learn Java? That would have been a way better idea.
I remember hearing, though, back in the day that Java was like the worst thing to learn back then. And now it's everywhere, right?
It was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
cool.
it was the exact same thing in my world. School, after I changed programming or over to the programming side, I learned all the .NET stuff, VB and ASP. So I can code for Windows, but I mean, I'm running all Linux and Android now, and I can't code anything for myself either.
Right? It's so
like
frustrating. It's like 2 years of wasted life. Like, man, that's tens of thousands in student loans I'll never get back. Damn it.
Yeah, exactly.
What is it now? Like it's all Python and Java nowadays, right? Like that's pretty much what everything is.
Yarp.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna jump over to Grushy in a second, but I wanted to make sure we covered this with Feisty. When did Android get into your tech life? Like when did it sort of evolve into basically what you're doing now?
Right from day one of Android, before it was even, the first products went out to the public. Of course, that was when I was in college learning this stuff. I was ripping down operating systems, learning what the kernel was, all that kind of stuff. And then along came Google with this new-fangled operating system for mobile. And I'm like, hey, look, professor, can we look at this? He's like, there's no future in mobile. Yeah.
Who wants an automobile when you have Zeppelins?
Yeah. So, that was kind of it was, before I really knew what Android was or what it could ever be, I was analyzing it, its internals, its software stack, and how it used intents to handle all of its processes and passing off, tasks. And, I fell in love with the OS, how it was in the back end, before I'd ever seen an image of what it looked like on a device.
Oh, okay. That's good. And then, of course, the rest is history. You're reporting on that now. Are you the crazy thing about like where we come from in terms of tech is like we're basically living proof of where it was, and we're complaining about the way it was, and now we're complaining about the way it is now. So not a whole lot has changed.
Hey, that's not true. I love everything. I think it's all fantastic. I loved my old crappy compact that never worked because there was a game on it that I could never ever beat, and it was like this MS-DOS game where you had to hit the space bar and it shot an arrow to the right, and you had to like time it correctly. And I was like 9 years old. I figured it out a couple of times, but I was never any good at it.
That sounds so familiar, but I can't think of what it was.
I loved the crap out of that. It was just called archery. It was like an MS-DOS. It was just like play archery, and then just the little targets would fall down the right side, and you shot the arrow at it. I loved that game. I thought it was awesome. I had no idea that there were better games out there at the time.
Hashtag bring back archery. That's Joe's new thing.
Thanks. Oregon Trail, guys. Come on, Oregon Trail.
Oh, man.
Oregon Trail 2. Oregon Trail 2 was superior.
Sequels blow.
There's a second one? Hold on. What?
There's like a million Oregon Trails, but Oregon Trail 2 was the best.
How could you have a second one if you died of dysentery?
Yeah.
Well, it obviously wasn't a sequel of events. It was just a remake.
You know why no one knows about the second one? Because you had to beat the first one first to play the second one.
Oh, God.
Yeah, there was like, and didn't they just remake it for mobile or something not too long ago?
I think
No.
they did.
They did because I remember someone asked me to review this and I told them no. Uh, it wasn't Oregon Trail the game. It was like Oregon Trail the sequel. Like, all right, you have settled the West and now you have to build a farm. And I was like, hell to the no. No, I don't. I'm not building any farms.
I thought you were talking about that one called Oregon Trail.
No, we're not talking about that.
Dude, Oregon Trail was a fun as hell game. That game was awesome.
Problematic as hell, but fun. Yeah. All right, well let's pop over to Grushy then. How did this tech world become your world?
Well, for me, it started shortly after the Christmas of 1990.
Oh, so specific.
Yeah, well, yeah, I remember this stuff. I'm a nerd like that. See, that was the year that my sisters were begging for. I had older sisters. I have no brothers. It was just me and 2 older sisters, and eventually 1 younger. Anyway, and they were begging for a gaming system, and so that year under the tree there was a NES. It was the one that was bundled with the Mario Brothers and the Duck Hunt. Anyway, the funny thing about that is when they first set it up downstairs in the family room, I absolutely hated the thing because everyone kept using it, and that meant I couldn't watch cartoons. You know, I was 5. And so I was really mad until one day my dad gave me, like, this was probably a few months after we got it, so when, the next year, my dad gave me a chance to play Mario for a little bit, and, like, that was it. I was addicted after that, and I've been addicted to... I was a Nintendo fanboy for pretty much forever. I'm still pretty close to that, but I've moved on. I still have a place in my heart for Nintendo, but more the old Nintendo and not so much the new one. Anyway, it really started with video game systems for me. I was huge into game systems. I collected. I owned a Game Boy, of course, like every other child of my era. Super Nintendo, and that's pretty much where it got started. As far as like my, obviously that's geek, but it's not necessarily tech geek. Where I made the shift was, a few Christmases later, probably 95.
December 27th, of course, at 3 p.m.
Yeah. Anyway.
9:45 p.m.
No, it was 7:53. Anyway, so my family decided, once again, because my sisters were begging for it, got a computer. A compact Presario, CDS something. I think it was like a 924. Anyway, this thing was ancient by today's standards. I mean, it's archaic. Back then it was awesome, but 75 megahertz Pentium 1, 8 megabytes of RAM, and it didn't even have a gig hard drive. It was like 750 megabytes.
Oh,
holy
dear.
crap.
Yeah, a 14.4K modem.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, this thing was classy.
I'm actually really surprised we haven't talked about 28.8 or 56K because, well, maybe we just would all like to forget that, I guess.
Yeah, I know. We try to forget as much. I remember when I upgraded to a 56K modem. I was like, "Woo, this is fast! The internet's awesome!"
The internet's awesome! What a great thing the internet is.
Going from 14.4, anything's an improvement.
Oh my gosh.
And then it was old computer. Windows 3.1 out of the box. And back in those days, they didn't force you to... Windows 95 was out, but it was just out, so they didn't force you to, have the newest. It came with the discs if you wanted to install it later, which I had to build up enough tech knowledge before my parents would let me do that, so it was like 2 years later. But anyway, I got started with that computer, and I just fell in love and got into really primitive programming languages like GW Basic and Q Basic a little later. And that's pretty much where I got started. By about 2-3 years in, so I would have been 11 or 12, I started building computers. And then I started selling them to friends and family. And actually, that's something I've continued to do for my whole life. Even today, I still do as a side thing. Now, granted, it's not really something I do regularly anymore, but I still have some regular people that will contact me for things, and I'll do it for pay. And so, yeah, it basically started with computers for me.
Okay.
I've Windows. I've used every version of Windows. I've built Hackintoshes. I've built, I have used pretty much various different versions of Linux over the years. So,
okay. Well, we'll use the term mobile, but obviously, we have the Android angle. When did mobile sort of pop into your tech life there?
Well, mobile popped in quite early as far as like smartphones and stuff. Well, even before smartphones, I owned a Palm Pilot. I had a Sony Clie. I had all of those old Palm-based stuff. And then I moved into Windows Mobile a little later with the Touch Pro 2. And that was in like 2010.
Oh, wow.
That was Windows Mobile 6 something, I think.
Yeah, back when they tried too hard to look like Windows.
Yeah,
95.
and I thought that was awesome back then. I was like, yes, it's like I have a computer.
It was the hardest thing to troubleshoot as a.
Yeah, though they were awful. And apps were awful. Everything was awful about them. Then I upgraded. I don't know if I would consider it much of an upgrade, but it was Android. At least I upgraded to the LG Vortex. Which most people who are listening to this might know that as the G Optimus 1. Oh. But on Verizon, it was called the Vortex. So you're talking a 600 megahertz Qualcomm chip and Froyo.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and so that was 2011, I think. So that was my 2011's where it all started with Android for me. So, and it was mostly budget stuff until more recent, like a couple of years, like it was a few years ago that I finally started getting decent Android phones. So
yeah, basically when I started at Android Authority,
it wasn't too much before that actually. Really? It was when I, because I did Android Authority part time for a while, and I had Android the whole time. But yeah, they were. I mean, I was still rocking gingerbread when ice cream sandwich was the thing.
Yeah.
And then I finally upgraded, and I was so excited.
Yeah, I bet that would be an exciting one to move from. I mean, we mentioned Froyo, gingerbread. My goodness. You see, it just seems like ages ago that we even had those in existence.
Well, yeah, and I mean, there's just such a. I mean, honestly, yes, there's been major changes from ice cream sandwich to like lollipop, but they still seem related. It's like Froyo and all of them seem like they're in a different world. Like they don't even, they don't belong. They're not Android.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess I'll follow up. I don't know. I keep thinking about like where I've come from in terms of like how much I love tech and where it all started, and it's gonna sound like I was catered for what I do at Android Authority now. But anyway, so it started off. I have one older brother, no other siblings, just my older brother, and we like you guys had to share a lot. And the first computer that I ever got was an Apple, like an early Apple, and everything looked monochromatic on it. And I remember we stuck with that computer long after we should have, because I remember us getting like an up-to-date printer, and I tried to print out the Marvel.com splash page because it had like all of the superheroes on it, and it basically fried the computer. It was just too much data for it to put into this more up-to-date printer. But we ended up going to a compact also, and I'm realizing Presario is probably a special, like, fancy way of saying POS. But
hey, I loved my computer, thank you.
I liked it. You know what? The compact was really great, but what I remember most about it was we had Windows 95 on it. I think we moved to 98 after a little while. But what I remember most about that compact was that I'm trying to remember if it was Best Buy or CompUSA, but I want to say it was CompUSA. They had this policy where if your computer messed up, you could bring it back, and if the guys behind the counter couldn't fix it, you just got a replacement.
What?
And
where the hell was that?
Yeah, that was CompUSA. That was CompUSA, I'm pretty sure.
That was CompUSA,
which might have been part of the reason why they went out of business. Who knows?
Fair enough. But yeah, I remember we took advantage of that thing so many times because I remember trying to mess with the version of Windows we had. I tried to change the splash screen all the time, the loading screen with that little bar on the bottom. I remember changing it so that it said like Windows 98 Pirate Edition, and if I screwed it up, then the whole thing was messed up. Then we moved to like HP, and now this was when the turning point came, because what used to be just like the Apple computer and the one that I fried because of the Marvel splash screen became a media center computer by HP that was in my room. And that was when I used to tell people used to ask me all the time, like, how do you know so much about technology? And I said, when I was a kid, I had a computer in my room and all the time in the world. And that's pretty much what happened. I learned the ins and outs of how to really make the Windows experience like my own and cater things.
Was it just software then, or did you?
It
mess
was
around with the
software.
hardware
Like
side?
I never got into building computers, and actually, like a little while back, I remember telling Joe that I wanted to move to a desktop computer, and I came to him like the absolute noob, like please teach me. And
that story gets better because I put together a really nice part list after finding out his budget and all that stuff, and then like a day later, he messages me back, "I'm just gonna buy a laptop."
I know, because I realized, as much as I would love having a desktop there, I was in the market for a PS4, and I still needed a rig that was portable for the trade shows and stuff. So it made sense as much as it didn't. So like that's why I was fighting with it. Like as you were putting together that part list, I was so torn, but between the possibilities, but. Yeah, I messed with those computers a lot, and of course, gaming had a lot to do with how I was back then. Also, I had a PS2 around this particular time, but I had I was mostly a Game Boy player before then. Nintendo, yes, before then, but I was so young at that point that I don't remember exactly what we played all the time on the NES. But yeah, PlayStation 2 was really where I found my stride as a gamer. So much to the point where I could dig it up somewhere. I still have a spindle of all the pirated games that I have. And I remember getting like a label maker for it, and I would actually just recreate on paper the actual what the discs look like and like stick it on. And I basically was like a peddler for these games. And the thing is, I gamed a lot on the PS2, but where mobile, let's say, but also where my love for actually seeing technology, where it was going, and what kind of became what would become my reporting life in technology came during the PSP days. Because Sony back then, they could do no wrong. They could absolutely do no wrong. They had the Sony Ericsson line with the Walkman, the W810, the W800, the W850, and then the PSP came out, and everyone was all up on the PSP. And I got both. I was able to swing it. I got straight A's, and I was able to swing both. And I remember my dad found T3, an issue of T3, which is a British magazine for tech. Very trendy, not necessarily like too in-depth, but they're pretty trendy. They're pretty popular out in Britain. And he looked on the page that said like the top 10 gadgets of the year. And sure enough, number 1 and 2 were the Sony Ericsson phone and the PSP. And I remember it was at that point that some sort of light clicked in my head, like, oh, I know a thing or two about what the people would want. Maybe I could maybe one day I would love to write about technology. And from there, just mobile started to sort of become a big thing. Like I went from the Sony Ericsson phone, I went to my first smartphone was a BlackBerry Bold 9000. I missed that thing so much, to be honest. Mostly because BBM was that awesome back then. It sucks ass now, but...
I never got behind BlackBerry a whole lot. To be fair, though, I've never really used them that much ever.
The keyboards are
I had
still
some friends who did, but
I'm just waiting for Google to buy BlackBerry because the patents behind the keyboard and how it interacts with the smartphone capabilities, those are all still BlackBerry's camp, and really they're the only ones who can make a keyboard, and it's like the most sublime experience ever. But it was after that I went to the Droid Incredible, and that was when the whole Android life started to come in. I started rooting and doing all that stuff. I don't do it so much anymore, given how robust operating systems are now. But yeah, I got into the whole rooting game. I put CyanogenMod on my Droid Incredible. I got a Galaxy Nexus, which had the worst battery life. And I remember having spare batteries in my bag all the time and always popping them in and out. And slowly but surely, I started to get more and more into this world of mobile and Android. And here's the part that I really wanted to share, and was when it came to video production. Obviously, Joe and I are the YouTubers in this podcast right now. But like when it came to video production, and that's obviously the big crux of what I do now, especially at Android Authority. I always remember back to all like the family vacations that we had, and we had these piece of crap camcorders, and at one point I had a flip video, and I would use those. But I remember I always became the historian of our family vacations, and I remember when I first started out being the video camera guy, so we can document our memories. I would do shots like this here and there. I would narrate in the background, like, oh, check out this museum that we're at, or oh, check out this landmark. And my dad would always give me tips. it's not that he knew what all of the terms were, but he would say stuff like, no, when you're going to move the camera like that, just do it slowly because you want to see everything, blah, blah, blah. And it just kind of, it blows my mind because all of those things that he said back then, not even knowing what he was saying, kind of became what I do for a living now. It was almost as if growing up he knew. And when you think about that aspect of my life in video production and then getting into mobile and then loving tech, it almost feels like I'm exactly where I need to be. So it's pretty gnarly when I think about it. And while you guys were talking, I was thinking about it, and I was like, oh, holy crap. Like, this is going to be kind of a crazy story for me to share. So those were our origin stories, and I'm sorry if I rambled on a little bit there, but I want... We're coming up on... Oh, well, thank you guys.
Your story was way better than mine. I wasn't even a tech nerd until 8 years ago.
Well, yeah, I didn't... And I never got around to... I kind of spaced out the whole part about how I transitioned into doing what I do for a living.
Oh, well, I mean, it just kind of felt pertinent because of, the things I was thinking about.
Oh, yeah.
But if you want to share that, I mean, by all means, go for it.
Well, no, I mean, basically, I went to college. You guys were talking about that, Engel. I went to college for business administration. I was really into that kind of stuff. I mean, while I was in college, I was a manager at a really young age. I was a store manager for McDonald's, and I ended up becoming a district manager when I finished. And I stayed with that for a while because, believe it or not, fast food can pay pretty well as you get up there. And I stayed for it for a while, but, I got burnt out. Working 70 hours in something that was just a thankless job, and they always expected more from you. And if anyone did anything wrong, you were blamed for it. And eventually I just got, to the point where it's like, see, as a child, there was two things I was passionate about before that. It was technology and it was writing. I remember writing when I was like, I don't know, probably 11 or 12. My version of Jurassic Park 2 before Jurassic Park 2 came out. It was awful, I'm sure, but I did write like 100 pages,
Oh, nice.
I've started and never finished probably 100 novels over the course of from third grade up until a couple of years ago, when I finally realized I was never going to finish anything, so it's time to give up. But anyway, so, I got to the point where I was like, I don't like what I'm doing. It's time to explore other avenues. And for a little while, I took a job working in a factory, just, warehouse type situation, driving around forklifts. And I started exploring the internet for writing. I knew that people, that it was a possibility that I could find something. And I started just doing random, freelance writing for just anything. And then one day, this site doesn't even exist anymore, but there was this little tiny site called Mobile Magazine. And I ran into it and I decided to apply, and he gave me an opportunity. I knew nothing about WordPress at the time, and this was 4 years ago now. And I was like, you know what, I'll do this as a side thing and see. And it's like all my training, it's kind of like what you were saying. That's why I decided to mention it. It's like everything I did before found its home. I helped, run the administration side there. I wrote. I got to express myself about technology. And when I came to Android Authority, just continued from there, and now I'm basically in an administrative role, and then I write and I edit, and and so it's like everything you did before. Even though I would never have guessed in a million years that I would be doing what I do today. It makes sense looking back, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if Joe and Feisty, you wanted to sort of explore that aspect, what tech world or what you've done in the past kind of shapes what you are doing right now.
You want to go first, Feisty?
Sure, I'll dive in. Did I mention that purchasing my first Android phone was almost an accident?
No, you're not.
So here's the thing. 2007.
What is this piece of garbage? I meant to buy an iPhone.
No,
but they were sold out.
No. I'll touch on that. I promise. But no. See, I was halfway through college at this point. I was rocking my HTC Touch, the Windows mobile phone. Previous version to what Grushy had there, but the same device. And now let me say, Google announced there was this morning or last night that they have this cross-platform music app that can work on the phone, on the the Chrome browser, all this kind of stuff. That's the stuff I was doing in school with this Windows mobile phone. I would, create games, .NET programming on the laptop, and then just a few quick button pushes, it would port over to the phone. But regardless. So here I am, 2010. I'm in the midst of doing all the paperwork so I can move from Canada to the States. I don't want to buy a new phone. I'm driving through the mountains, coming from British Columbia through back home to Calgary, and the phone dies, just completely stops. So I find the next Best Buy, I pull in, I say I want the cheapest prepaid Android phone you can give me, and I got the LG Optimus One, that old P500. And you know what? It's right here in front of me. It still plays music just fine on Gingerbread. Yeah.
That thing was awful. That phone was awful.
Man, Gingerbread was like the top of everyone being excited about an OS release. Oh my God, did you see the glow at the end of the scroll? Holy balls, that was amazing.
Yes.
I just love Grushy just stomping all over Feisty's memories there. Like that.
No, that's the phone I had. That was my first Android phone. So I'm just,
the P500?
Yeah, that was what it was. It was the same phone. Other than mine was labeled LG Vortex, but it was the exact same phone.
Okay, gotcha.
So yeah, just from my own experiences, that thing froze all the time.
Yeah, I never had that problem. No, I rooted this one and I wiped out
probably the
all
fact
the
it was Verizon.
Okay.
Probably the fact that it had Verizon bloatware may have played, a role. I'm just saying.
That works. Again, this was the unlocked version, so that helped a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I rocked that phone for the longest time until finally I moved into the States, and then, I got the Moto G, but the defining point for me moving to today, it was the Nexus 7. I remember watching 2012, the I.O. conference, sitting there in my office watching it, and I mulled it over for a couple weeks before I actually ordered, but I finally ordered that thing, and the day it arrived was, a completely new experience for me. Yeah, it showed up. What can I say? I'll never forget that day. It was my brother was in a motorcycle accident that day, so I turned the device on. I got the phone call. I was out the door. It was a 3-hour drive up to where he was. I basically did the initial setup of the Nexus 7, in the waiting room in the hospital. My first week with that device was our entertainment in the hospital room. It was, and ever since then, I don't think I've gone a day since that thing arrived that I haven't touched a tablet. And it just, that's kind of where it all came from, was there. That device became, at the time, it was the strongest computer I had. And it did everything. There wasn't much that I could not do on it. And I was doing quite a bit on it, I might add. But, now there's multiple devices, and, I distribute everything across. And, through this all, I was working at a real estate company. And I was kind of doing their in-house technology stuff and web development. But really the big thing that got me over to the writing side was just writing all the in-house how-to manuals. I will say again, for anybody new computer users listening, double click does not mean push the left and right mouse buttons at the same time. It means the left mouse button twice. Yeah.
I was just imagining myself doing that, and that feels really weird.
Yeah, no kidding. So yeah, that was kind of the world I was in, was, after school, but before working with you guys here at Android Authority, was, working with the people at Real Estate World. Sorry, that wasn't the name of the company. In the real estate world, just teaching them how to use technology in general, starting right from the ground up. And as you have seen, plugging again my Thursday posts, even today was, just a basic, simple, easy user stuff of, how to change an icon pack on your device.
Nice.
And I'm getting a lot of love in air quotes from readers who are like, "Come on, that's simple stuff. Why are you doing this?" But I've answered this question for a number of people before. It was requested again that I write it up here. So what I was doing before is at least one small part of what I'm doing now. And well, writing other than that is certainly still a learning process for me.
Well, speaking to the quote-unquote love, as you said, I remember mentioning this to someone at MWC. The people who will benefit most from what seems like the simple stuff are the exact same people who probably don't even know how to comment on it. So there you go. I mean, you probably reached a lot of people who have benefited from the work that you've done. You just don't know it because, well, chances are maybe they actually don't know how to tell you that that thank you that you're looking for, possibly.
Absolutely.
Sounded to discus.
Yeah,
what the hell is discus?
No, exactly. So, Joe, you formulated your thoughts there. You're gonna bring us home?
Yeah. I went over this briefly in my Meet the Team video, so I won't go into too much detail. So I got like the Moto Click, but I didn't root my first device until the HTC My Touch 3G Slide. And holy crap, I hate saying the name of that phone. Every time I do, I just like it's like 6 syllables. It's ridiculous. But I rooted that, and that was the first time I did a whole lot of stuff. And it was, going from, because I still wasn't that much of a tech nerd back then. Like, I loved technology, but I wasn't like a nerd about it. The HTC My Touch 3G Slide was the first time I nerded out on something. Like, I was in the XDA forums, I was looking up how to tether, and I looked up how to root the thing. I rooted the thing, learned how to flash the custom ROMs, learned what CyanogenMod was. And it was such a huge and overwhelming experience. And I was like, man, I'm never going to get all of this. My next phone after that was the HTC G2, which was my first 4G phone. 3.5G for the haters out there. HSPA Plus rocks. I don't care what anyone says.
It does.
But, I rooted that, put CyanogenMod on that. And then after that, I decided to dump T-Mobile because at the time they sucked. And I picked up the Evo 4G. The HTC Evo 4G on Sprint, and that was the phone that made me an Android fan, the kind of Android fan that I am today. The phone was ridiculous. It was the root methods, there was the S-off methods, there were like something like 200 or 300 ROMs, AOSP and stock sense, and it went from 2.2 to 2.3 to 4.0, and it was like, before 2.3 was even out, there were 4.0 sense ROMs out. It was ridiculous. And, I started hanging out in IRC channels, and I started talking to the moderators and to the developers, not like, talking with them, but like kind of just sitting there and watching them talk. For anybody listening that remembers the last Android Authority podcast, the Hangouts on Air one, Daniel Charlton is how I met him. He was a kernel developer, or he developed kernels for the Evo 4G. He went by Tiamat back then, I think. So yeah, the first time I met him, he actually banned me from the IRC channel for 3 days because I said something stupid.
Sounds about right.
But I learned so much about Android with the Evo 4G, and frankly, speaking, the root experience for every phone since then has been wildly worse. Like, the 4G was just so epic in every conceivable way. And then I had an Evo 3D and a Galaxy S2, and then a Galaxy Nexus, and then an HTC Evo 4G LTE after that. During that time, I was in college. I was doing full-time college. I was working various small jobs. I worked at a U-Haul at some point. I worked at a BW3 Wild Wings. It was October of, I think it was 2012. And unfortunately, my dad passed away. And I was living at home with him. He was the one that was paying the bills, putting the food on the table, roof over the head while I went to college. And after he passed away, I suddenly had this problem where, oh shit, I need a roof over my head. So I was looking for a second job, and I was looking everywhere for one. And I was just goofing around on XDA one night. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I saw help wanted writers. And I was like, well, hell, why not? And so I sent them a message. I was like, hey, I don't really write much, but I really love, the forums, and I've been here for years. And at that point, I was pulling like modems out of phones and posting them up and posting stock ROMs and all that stuff, like little modder stuff, but definitely more than most. And they hired me on, and then I worked at XDA for 14 months, and then transitioned over to Android Authority. But in terms of writing, I was actually in the military for 4 years in my early 20s, and the first unit I was ever in was disbanded or shut down or whatever. It wasn't needed anymore, so I got transitioned over to a PR unit and ended up transitioning into broadcast journalism. And that's where I kind of, like, anybody who watches my video delivery, that's where I learned it. The super rapid fire fast. You know, if I screw up, I have to start over and do it again. That's where I got that from.
Oh, I see. So, I mean, it's crazy. Like, thinking about it now, we came into this podcast thinking, oh, we're just going to talk about the stuff we used to do. And now we realize just how much it kind of melded us into who we are now. I was not planning on this podcast being so cathartic, but I'm glad that it did.
All the feels, yeah.
I know, right? We're all just like...
It's the origin stories.
Our chins are in our hands right now. We're just like,
I know. You see, here's the thing that sucks is that, like, because I have a keyboard tray, and then, like, my mic doesn't fit on it. So I'm actually, like, straight back, leaning forward a little bit, and I don't have any room to rest my elbows anywhere. So, and you guys may be doing the hands and the chin kind of thing, but I'm, like, straight up wired, ready to go right now. Like, all right.
Well, it is well past midnight for Joe, though. So I mean, we're a little bit past our time, but you know what? We've had such a good time sharing and listening to one another's stories that, you know, I hope all of you have been able to get something out of this particular podcast, and this is certainly another one of those favorites that we've had. I think we can all agree. But yeah, I'll go ahead and I was telling them at the beginning of the podcast that I wasn't going to do the canned intros during the call, but I will still do the canned outros. So we're going to dive into it.
I'm sorry.
No, not at all. All right, so we'll dive into it. Keep it tuned to Android Authority. Thank you so much for listening to the Friday Debate podcast. This was episode number 8 about our tech origin stories. We hope you enjoyed it on this Friday. As always, the Friday Debate podcast comes out every Friday, and we discuss topics in Android every single week. You can listen to us on Pocket Cast, on Stitcher, on iTunes. And if you are watching the YouTube version of this podcast, please remember that those particular networks are available for you as well, and those are definitely the best places to listen to the FDP. I am once again Joshua Vergara from Android Authority, of course, and I'm here with 3 of our usual hosts. We have Jonathan Feist, Joe Hindy, and Andrew Grush, who you all just heard their tech origin stories and got to know a little bit more about them, and also myself. Keep it tuned to Android Authority for all of the best coverage. Drop us likes on our YouTube channel. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and don't forget to head on over to AndroidAuthority.com and our forums to talk even more about Android. And then every Friday, you can listen to us on the FDP. I keep saying it again, we keep talking about our tech origins. That was what we did. I really do think that we're going to have a topic sometime in the future about where we want to see, like, what are we looking forward to in the future? You know, where do we want to see these tech worlds go? You know, because I mentioned the HTC Vive at the beginning, and I was very close to asking the question, but then I realized maybe that's a topic we can hold for another episode of the Friday Debate podcast. I want to extend another thanks to our co-hosts here today, and I do want us to, as always, do our outro for this particular podcast. Let's get everybody together. Keep it tuned to Android Authority, as I keep saying. Also to the Friday Debate podcast every single week, discussing topics in Android every week, because, of course, we are your source for all things
Android.
Man, I totally missed that.